Good afternoon, Transpac race fans. I'm Dobbs Davis here with Kerry Deaver. We are going to give you the position analysis report here on the 23rd of July. We're overlooking Alawai Harbor in Honolulu, and it's just a fantastic place to be. Lots of boats came in last night, including Kerry. Kerry is the navigator and did a lot of things on board, right, Kerry? Besides navigation, she's part of the team on Callisto, which is the top Cal 40. They finished late yesterday afternoon, and we have Kerry here, and it's our great pleasure to have her to go over this race. We're going to do an overview today, not of everybody out there, but just the winning team in the Cal 40 class and how they did it. So when we look up at the in our opening screen here, you familiar with this site? This is the tracker software, and I have the wind turned on to show you what's going on out there now. Maybe I'll take 1 minute to just say that it's breezy again and it's sunny again, which is great. Yesterday was really an awful muggy day, overcast. So images that you'll see from today will be fantastic. Our final wave of boats that are out on the course are coming in. I think our tail end Charlie this year will definitely be Gamble. Jason Siebert's Shock 40. We're going to hook up with him in a day. My guess is he'll be in about this time tomorrow, hopefully, because as you can see, 216 miles out. Sorry, distance to finish 290, but that was at 0300 this morning, Hawaii time, which illustrates something that we've been talking about for a week and a half now, is the limitations on these trackers at giving accurate information. That's going to come into our story here with Kerry, but this is the current situation. What I'd like to do now is actually go back in time using our software here in the tracker tool and have Kerry walk us through this race. I'm going to zoom back out so we get the big picture here, which, as we know, is this feature. This whole race is about avoiding that feature, right, Kerry?
Absolutely, the Pacific High.
And there are different strategies on how to do that depending on what day you started. Maybe while we still have the wind graphics on here, because we'll lose them when we go back in time, Kerry, you can give us an overview of what you all faced when you started on 10th of July.
The Pacific High that you see here, nicely developed and robust, hadn't formed yet. It was down here right around the rum line, which meant this was light air. And in order to get to Hawaii, down here in the corner, we had to take a dive and come down. The question is, in a Cal 40, how low can you go? Because every extra mile you sail is very slow. So you can't take a whole big dive and make it pay, because we are not a surfing, planing boat.
And for those that are watching or listening and don't know what a Cal 40 is, this is a design from, when is it, Kerry? 1965,
yeah.
Right?
We were sailing a 60-year-old boat.
And we laugh, of course, but the boats were actually quite a breakthrough boat in their time. This was one of the first designs to have a separated rudder and keel. At that point, a lot of the offshore boats had full keels and behaved accordingly. Cal 40, in separating that, had a greater amount of maneuverability and agility relative to its contemporaries. And therefore, for the next, probably several years or more, the Cal 40 was kind of the benchmark boat for Transpac.
Yeah, she's light by comparison, and she has a relatively flat bottom for that era, and she will surf. But she is a tiller, which is something to remember as we go forward here on this race.
And then the other, again, relative to, I'll say one more thing on performance, the Cal 40's polar diagram is probably pretty close to circular, eh? It
Absolutely.
Goes the same speed in any direction.
Yes, and that's one of the keys, is if you get it over a certain boat speed, you just need to keep heading down, head towards Hawaii, heads towards Hawaii.
Right.
So it doesn't pay to head up and go faster.
All right, so with those caveats in mind, we're gonna go back in time, scroll back in the race to its beginning. You can see the tracks of all these boats and some general trends. And then here at this point, the 14th of July, you can see those three discrete groups that were in different starting waves. And then you can also actually see in gray some of the boats that were tired and were heading back to the coast, most of them having rudder problems. We won't get into that in this show, but that's something to keep in mind. And then what I'm going to do is actually just try to zoom in a little bit. Now, we talked about tracker problems, and Kerry, tell us about, what I've done actually is I have highlighted Callisto amongst this group, but tell us about your experience with the tracker, Kerry.
We turned it on as prescribed prior to the race, day and a half before. They were receiving live pings, so nobody had any concerns. But apparently, and with the 4-hour delay, nobody really realized that our tracker was intermittent at first after the start. You know, why are we not out on the race course? Did you not start the race? Those kind of emails started to come into the boat, and nobody had time to answer those. That's not my problem. We're trying to get to Hawaii. And so it wasn't until, maybe a day or so into the race where the race committee actually said, hey, let's do a restart on your tracker. So we followed their instructions, and we did a ping, and it got it going again for another day or two, or some time frame. And then they said, hey, it's still not working, go look at it again. And in a very short order, our battery power went from in the low 70s to 30 to 0. And it just, that was in less than 24 hours, boom, gone. And they said, hey, grab the cable, plug it in. Well, it was, shall I say, an old school cable connection. And nobody carries, at least we didn't carry any extra things that we didn't really have. So we were unable to recharge the tracker, which we would dearly have loved to have been able to do, because it created significant extra work for us.
Well, maybe you can comment a little bit, Kerry. Coming off the start at Point Furman, if I remember that day on the 10th of July, the breeze was kind of left. I mean,
yes.
And y'all weren't going to clear Catalina, and you can see the tracks here show that.
Well, the very start of the race, we had a horrible start. It couldn't have gone worse for us. We got sandwiched between two very big boats, and then we couldn't get out from underneath them, and we were quite miserable for at least half the crossing to Catalina. But the old lore in that part of the neighborhood is if you can lay arrow point or better, you stay on your starboard tack, and you will get lifted as you get in towards the island. It'll pull you up, and then short tack the island from arrow point up towards the west end. And then also at the west end, there can be an eddy. And there's a question as to how far away from the west end on the west side do you stay before you tack and head to Hawaii.
So if we use our trackers to, even though it's every 4 hours, but if we use our trackers to test this theory, arrow point is this one?
Yes.
Right. So if you lay arrow point, you just hang with it and you get lifted around the west end.
Well, short tack up the beach.
Short tack up the beach.
Current release.
Stay out of the current, which is, as many know, running from northwest to southeast. Now, again, ignore this. Callisto didn't.
Yes, ignore that.
they didn't get that initial jump out there. That's all a tracker artifact. But they are somewhere embedded in here with their Division 10. They're in Division 10 of the Cal 40s. So divisions 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10? No, 7,
yes.
7, 8, 9, and 10? I don't know. There were many divisions that started here, mostly the slower boats compared to the others in the fleet. And see who lays arrow point. See quite a few, I guess.
Nobody laid it.
Oh, sorry.
Nobody laid it. Everybody had to tack.
Okay. So we're not showing that level of detail here, but that's how the fleet gets up and around West End, and the wind is it far enough left that it does people do have to tack. Then they decide whether they tack straight away. This is obviously something Brigadoon did. They bore off. They went straight down. They followed that recipe for southerly tracks, and looking at that relative to where Catalina is, it looks like everybody's on that same game plan. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to go forward in time a little bit. Now, I do have Callisto highlighted their position is more or less correct. And this is first. Well, it probably is, right? You're probably somewhere in that neighborhood.
Somewhere in the pack.
Yeah. And this is let's see. So this is early afternoon. Well, no, local time. This would be first night. So
Right.
so 3 hours on top. Sunset, somewhere a little after sunset. They're now getting, with enough speed, they're getting out into the synoptic breeze, the northwest breezes on the coast, right?
Yes, it actually was in closer to shore than it sometimes is. We came off there with good breeze right away and got right into it and kept right on going.
Yeah, talk about that a little. So out here, sometimes you get in that transition zone
Right.
between the westerly thermal breeze that comes into the beaches and through the thermal effects of the land into this sort of transition area where you then are getting into the synoptic breeze offshore.
Right. Well, there's a few stages to the race. The first one, certainly in my world, is to the starting line, getting a boat there and the crew. That's race one.
Okay.
The second race up to Arrow Point, and then from there racing to get into the true northwesterly breezes. And in that area that you just showed here, it can be the transition. So sometimes you're not pointing, your ultimate course to Hawaii. You're trying to come as straight across quickly into this northwest breeze and then head down. This year we had enough breeze that we went, great, we're on our way. So everybody took a lower course.
I see.
And also to avoid a pier that high that was sitting up on Rumline.
Right.
So we all were forced low.
Mm-hmm. And the breeze was also kicked a little bit left as well.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So now going forward in time more, Kerry, you said that relative to your competition, which talk a little bit about that. I mean, remember, we're here sitting in the studio looking at a tracker and having all this amazing information available to us, graphically and otherwise. But you didn't have that on Callisto.
Not at all. We had a computer that would, using Expedition, we could plot where we were and what our polars were, and periodically pull in some yellow brick information, presuming, one, it was updated, and two, that it was accurate. We could not see each other except for one pass with one of our competitors, and we are shorthanded sailing. There were 4 of us on board, so 2 people are up, 2 are sleeping or doing whatever you need to do to keep the boat moving, and it was blowing hard. So there was not a lot of bandwidth available to be messing with computers and worrying about where everybody else is. We were sailing, not going to say survival sailing because that has a different connotation, but we were sailing just as hard and as fast as we could on our game plan.
So at this stage in the race, for example, so this is 11th of July. This is like midday, second day of the race. This is typically where it's overcast and you're in that marine layer and it's 15 to 20 knots, close reaching.
Yes.
Is that about what you had in this?
That is, and at that point we were in a jib top.
A jib top.
135 okay. With a Genoa staysail.
Right. So two sail reaching, and is that fairly comfortable and fast for Cal 40s?
Oh, for us it was great fun, great fast, very much under control. Mm-hmm. No reef. Don't want to reef those boats, and we were sailing as much down as it was wind angle. Just going forward fast and down.
I see here a couple of your competitors. So there's Azure, another Cal 40, who are also sailing with 4.
Yes.
They're as you can see, they've taken a little bit a higher track. Psyche is kind of in between you two, and then you had another competitor, Viva, but I don't. Where are they? Oh, there they are, right there. So explain to us how they get this sort of initial jump out in those conditions.
They are just wicked fast. We found we were relatively evenly matched with Azure, boat for boat in boat speed, but Viva had 1/10 to sometimes 2/10 of a knot of boat speed on us and was just slowly pulling away the first part of the race, and we didn't know what we could do about it. Again, we were sailing as hard as fast as what we had. We didn't know if they had a different sail set of people, what they could do. But she had speed.
Right. So your race amongst the Cal 40s is really confined to this group. But at this time, you really, I mean, was everybody within sight here, or is that separation?
Oh no, we
No.
didn't see each other.
Okay,
No.
so right, so there's too much separation here. In fact, usually a scale. Where are we? It's down here in the corner. 5 nautical miles.
Yeah.
So 5 nautical. That's about 7 or 8
Yeah.
nautical miles. That's hull down in those conditions.
Right.
So you don't see them.
And we're not looking anyway at that point. We're looking at sails.
So so that's what's interesting to me is if you all are not imaging yourselves and really sailing a tactical race, you're just executing your own game plan.
Yes.
Right. Interesting. Okay. Because again, it's tempting for us to look at this from our view to say, oh yeah, look at that, and they did this and they did that. And we look at the relatives, but you all didn't have that view.
No, we did. We absolutely no. To get a view like this, I think you'd have to have satellite, real satellite, and a real budget.
Right. Okay. I'm gonna, because I think having that in mind. So here's the core group here, and if we scroll forward in time and just try to keep track. Now, what's happening there? The Callisto did a little bit of a shimmy.
Driver change.
So.
I know. I think at that point we were getting ridden up on the jib top, and we were about ready to set our 3A.
Ah, okay. So
we
you're getting lifted.
We're getting lifted.
Breeze is going right, and with that rig that you have, the jib top and the staysail, its best angle is taking you a little bit, more in a westerly track, and Viva's down here.
Right.
Azur's here.
Right, now that says Psyche.
I'm sorry. No, Psyche's behind you. Right
okay, there we go. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So those guys, either they set their A3 earlier and that might have kept them down, because they're not going slower. Everybody's just taking a different track. See if I can keep that group together. Now you set
see
the A3.
you can see where we set.
Right. So
Boom.
you had the left turn,
right.
New sail, going in a lower track. The Viva guys now go this way. Psyche remains high, so maybe they didn't have that sail, or they didn't have the same envelope.
I think Azur is going to be right, maybe underneath our.
Maybe underneath. You guys were close. Okay. Oh, wait, no, I think it's that one. Is that Azur? No. Okay. There was at one point you said you crossed over.
The 13th, midday.
13th, midday. So let's go forward to that. Midday Hawaii time. Oops. 13th, sorry. Somewhere back here. Okay, yeah. Here's Azur here. You guys in the middle. Viva up here.
Right.
Psyche's way up here.
Yes.
Okay. So we go forward, and here comes Azur. There we go.
There they come up.
Right. So that's them there. Viva continues to elevate too. Now, you guys are still in the A3 at this stage?
Yes.
Okay.
A3 going down.
So in order for them to make this move, maybe they had an A3 that was flatter. Maybe they went back to the jib top, because that's a...
Actually, no. At that point, as we were still coming down, we had switched. We had switched just a few hours earlier.
Okay.
That explains it.
Yeah, so there's a little kink in your track here.
Right.
Maybe that was switching from A3 to the A2.
Right, and then...
Gotcha. A3 or no? Do you have an A3? Do you have a S2?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
okay.
or in our old school world, it was a .75.
Wow, that's old school.
Oh, it's a 15-year-old sail.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, it was built for Transpac 2005.
So you went to your downwind VMG sail.
Yes.
Okay. And those guys were probably still in their reaching sail, just sort of surmising that you all had the same breeze. And then they cross over at that point there.
Yes.
Right. And then start heading up that way.
Right.
So now you're on the low road.
Right.
Viva's up here on the high road.
Right.
Okay. But this is all still part of your game plan. Now, if we scroll out, let's see where.
Well, hold on. This was our moment of truth, and I brought everybody in the cockpit and said, "Okay, we need to be sure we all agree with what our game plan was.
Mm-hmm.
We wanted the low road.
Mm-hmm.
We wanted a separate lane to the south, meaning maybe 20 miles. But we are literally boat for boat with Azure. One of us owes the other 2 minutes. So the first guy to Hawaii wins, on a boat for boat basis.
Mm-hmm.
And we are now letting them go.
Wow.
We were ahead. Are we willing to let them go? And they said, well,
bold call.
Yeah, you're looking at the goat.
Right. Wow.
So let's and one of the other considerations was Viva again had that knot to tenth of a knot more, a tenth or 2/10 of a knot more on us, and we certainly weren't going to catch her by following her.
Right. And keep in mind, folks, they're doing this without the benefit of seeing what we see here. They're not looking at this tactically. They have no visual. They have no real-time position data. They don't have somebody actively plotting every hour where everybody is. They've got one window per day. Is that correct? The 0800 position reports?
Yeah, that comes out, and
yes.
then you can get a 4-hour update.
Oh, you can. Okay. That's right. By pinging Yellowbird, you can get those 4-hour updates. But you may or may not have the time to do that.
And Yellowbird may or may not be accurate.
So I have to ask about life on board. Did you have a fixed watch? Did you guys rotate? Or how did that work?
Well, first of all, this was a family boat, and we had 2 brothers on board as 2 skippers, the co-skippers.
Uh-huh.
And I set the watches up to make sure the brothers were opposite.
Good idea.
Family loves family, but they're co-skippers. So hey, you both are watch captains. Yeah, that's what it is. But and so then Fred and I were the opposites.
Okay.
And for every maneuver, everybody was up,
mm-hmm.
and the watches were 4 on during the day.
Mm-hmm.
3 at night.
Yep.
And we just kept rotating.
So you had like a 2-hour overlap or something where somebody, you didn't have a wholesale watch change.
No. So for example, on a 4-hour during the day shift,
mm-hmm.
I'd get up, sail for 2 hours with one of the brothers.
Mm-hmm.
Then he would go down, and the second brother would go up for the next 2 hours.
Right.
And at night we turned it down to 90-minute changes so equaling. Yeah.
So you had some continuity.
Yes.
Great. But
Fresh
I imagine for you being navigator, you weren't given a lot of leeway to say, hey, I got to do some plotting. You got everything okay up here?
Oh, I'd say that, and they'd yell, no. Quit messing around. Get back here.
Right.
Come drive.
So driving and trimming 2 people on a Cal 40. Yeah.
Yeah, and 20 to 25 knots of breeze for a lot of the race.
So that's it. Yeah, and I think if we go forward, we can see some relatives here that there's enough separation. Maybe we can see, not see, but infer some possible wind changes in pressure. Because I think at some point here, it's all pretty constant. You can see this trimarans ripping through. It's a nice animation. The Viva made a big jump there. Now here's the other thing I think you told me last night, Kerry, is Viva is the same speed with you guys when the wind is up, but as soon as it starts getting light, they're faster than you.
Oh, she eats our lunch. Boom, 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 boom. Chews it up.
So maybe that's another reason not to get up in the north here with them. There they are up here.
With a potentially lighter breeze.
Right, exactly. Okay. But you've got plenty of separation here. You're on the low road, executing your game plan. Azure's in the middle. And Psyche, again, coincidentally, so you couldn't see them? That was
no.
About a 5-mile gap?
No.
No, interesting. Okay. Bigger boats, faster boats zipping through. But that was exciting, that one.
Yeah.
Were you on deck?
No.
Who is that? Maserati? Paradox.
Okay. No, it's not.
So now it gets interesting, though, right? Because you've been lifted enough now that you start to reach another crossroads of where do you decide to jibe? Do you go back all the way up to here and do the classic S-curve to jibe back? Again, not knowing where your competition is. It turns out, yeah.
Well, we knew in general terms
mm-hmm.
where they were.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is
even with a 1 day.
Right,
yeah,
in the 4 hours. So in general terms. So now at this point, it becomes more of a generalized, stay between the mark or the finish line and your competitors.
Okay.
In general terms.
Mm-hmm. And here it becomes obviously a downwind leg. So there's no longer really reaching as an option. You're VMG
full
sailing.
VMG sailing.
Right. Okay.
Big sails.
So until you got a position report at some point, you didn't know that these guys had jibed.
Correct.
Right. And with that jibe, do they have enough? Then the question is the angle enough that they're going to cross you?
There you are.
Right. So here we go. We're going to look to see what happens. So that little pink icon and you guys in the center.
Right.
And what happens?
We squirted ahead.
You squirt ahead. It looks like they jibe back, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So now they're here in here with Azure.
They had a remarkably close boat race. The two of them were very close for most of the race.
Cool. So you just stuck to your guns. You
didn't go back. Yeah,
didn't jibe at all.
Our game plan was to go as fast as we possibly could. That's all we could do.
I'm looking at these two. They must have been.
I believe they were within sight of each other.
They had to be, because their maneuvers are not on the same track. They're working through the squalls and the puffs and the lulls. Somebody gets a little jump because they get in a squall the correct way. Somebody goes back, and sometimes that it's funny because we talk about that a lot in the strategy of sailing. Sometimes you get pushed and you because you're focused on some competitor. You both go very fast because you're really now not cruising. You're really racing. You're not racing against some virtual clock. Right. You are boat for boat, and the focus is high, and you get more out of everything. And yet these two locked in battle have Psyche who's come up in behind him. So again, but that could just be happenstance, differences in pressure and so on. All right, so they for sure are on top of each other there. Look at that. They're jibing to match.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm wondering if that move there, or them jibing, because clearly you're lifted now.
Right.
And your jibe angles are 20, 30, 40 degrees?
30 to 40.
30 to 40, okay. Which means
because of the sea state.
Sea state.
It was all about the sea state. Oh, we can sail it deep.
Right.
But not in the sea state.
Okay. So the ability to sail VMG on your normal polars is compromised. The fact that it's just it's lots of confused seas.
Right.
Yeah, we got lots of reports of that, and actually wrote that up in last night's press release. Okay, so they are now to your left.
Yes.
And then they go back up. They jibe back. And you guys are steady as a rock. There's a little course change. But we don't know that because we're only getting
the 4 hours.
Right, 4-hour reportings. That's why you're steady as a rock.
We were up and down, no question. No, we jibed and we had our had our follies, shall we say. We had our evening follies with spinnaker issues and
like everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so interesting. And then now, at this stage, everybody, you and almost everybody around you looks like you're on port jibe.
Yes.
Right? Pretty solidly on port. Breeze is lifted around now to be, east northeast or due east. And how far out are you here? Let's see. That is distance to finish 32 miles. Is that possible? Okay. DTF. So now it's just stay between your man and the hoop, but you still don't see him.
Never saw him.
Never saw him. Interesting. Now, at what point were you getting these requests to turn on your AIS? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, we had no tracker, and I can absolutely understand their frustration on that. The Yellow Brick goes live at 200 miles.
Right.
So I guess there was a thought of, hey, well, you could see us on Yellow Brick at 200 miles every hour. You should turn on your AIS, which really isn't comparable in my mind, in that the AIS has constant, moment by moment, heading course over ground. Now, maybe if the comment had been, I'll show you mine if you show me yours type deal, everybody flip on their AIS, but they were somewhere 8 miles back.
Right.
And we just kept looking over our shoulder because in the lighter air, because it did get a little bit lighter, they took the lead in half in less than 24 hours.
Right.
And so that's we were lucky to outrun them. But then the wind came back up. So we can hang with them when there was breeze, maybe boat for boat, but in the light air, they just right on by.
So we need to look at this gap here between the two of you and see how that projected to change.
Yeah, it was the second to last day.
Yeah. Oops. Yeah, Azure and Viva's in there too.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, so they got below you.
Yes.
Sorry. To windward if you're all in port.
Right.
But
towards Hawaii, it was below.
Right. Oops. What happened there? Crazy Ivan.
Oh, yes. Oh, that was great. So as a navigator, never let any crew members do your work, but I was so tired and I had to do a report because I was reporting manual every 4 hours. I said, hey, just write down the lat long when I get up an hour after that, because they needed it, with a little delay wouldn't be a problem. Somebody transposed a number when they wrote the lat long down. So I sent it in. That was what was in the log. I just sent in the email, sent it in to the race headquarters, and then all of a sudden we were going backwards. Oops.
Oops. Yeah.
Which is the human aspect of this whole thing.
Sure. Yep.
There's humans throughout this process, which is why you can't always, believe what you're seeing on the screen.
And this is sort of the final approach. And again, you could not see them, nor know exactly where they are.
Not in the also with Yellow Brick on the last 200 miles, when it goes live, it takes it out of the database that I was using. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, they disappeared.
Oh, right. Wow.
And that's when they're saying, well, but we don't know where you are. And I said, well, I really don't know where you are either. And I had actually forgotten that the database goes live.
Right.
And so I went down and went, you know what? It just doesn't matter to us at this point. And I talked to the crew about it. I said, we have no options. We can't go up. We can't go down, whether they're over to the left or right or wherever they are behind us or not behind us. We have to go as fast as we can to the corner down here. I mean, this is it. Aim for that and go like the race depends on it, because it does. Go, 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 go.
Right. Cool. Well, it certainly sounds exciting.
It's frustrating for everyone.
No, but it's cool because you guys are operating on your principles and not necessarily in knowing this other dimension of what's happening on the playing field.
Right.
So it's kind of cool to see it work out, and I'm just amazed that these boats stay so close over such a distance in time and space.
I am shocked as well. I'm blown away on how close everybody finished. And, the Northern California boats that came down, Viva and Azure, fantastic sailors. Mm-hmm. And they've done a lot of racing. And I'm pleased just to have been on the same playing field with them. And I think really the race turned in the decision to push further south and staying away from the high. That was the difference. The rest is, ultimately, my mind was chafe. Miles sailed. And, obviously you don't want to make jibing errors or breaking poles and blowing up spinnakers, which we had 2 of the 3 of those. Those type of things.
Right.
But I think it was that first corner staying a little bit low, just a little bit into more breeze, is where the race turned for us.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Kerry. And then for those that want to look at the results, they're up on yacht scoring, and what's amazing too, again, in corrected time, because Viva is a faster boat and is rated faster. The difference between them and Azure in corrected time was 2 minutes.
Yeah, which is nothing. That's a driver change.
Yeah, exactly. So certainly very exciting, even for old slow boats. And I really like that story, and I hope all of you who are watching and listening like it too. But it's time for us to go, and thanks for tuning in today. The next couple of shows I'm going to do the same with a navigator from Hamashi, who was our overall winner from the J125. And then I hope to get Stan Honey on to talk about the perspective from the last race starters on that Saturday the 13th. So thanks again, and tune in next time. This is Dobbs Davis with Kerry Deaver signing off for now.